Hi everyone, we're going to take a quick look at Reaper. So this is the audio software I've been telling everybody to use this try. And when you open it up, you're probably greeted with something a little bit like this. So today we're going to look at some basic sound effects stuff, but the reason Reaper is so good is because we can also do music in it if we want to. But also, just what it can do in terms of effects and editing is a lot more powerful than anything else that's around that's free. Um, so let's take a look at the interface first. So it seems a little bit confusing and daunting at first, especially because it's quite sparse. All right, got some buttons here and some drop downs, and then just a time, right, like a timeline. So the first thing I like to do is open up the mixer. So if we go to view and then mixer, that way we can keep an eye on all of our mixing settings and effects and everything along the bottom. And I find that that makes things a lot easier. This is global, but we're going to add some tracks now. So you might be adding tracks from a sound file that you already have. And that is as simple as just dragging the sound you have in. And wow, we have a track now and it has our sound on it. Mine are all colorful because I've been playing with my settings. You can Google how to do that, but it's not that important. But we've got a sample in here now, and if I hit play, that'll play that sound. And we can put all sorts of effects on this. So to add an effect to this, I can either click on this effects button, or if I've got my mixer open, I can click on one of these items here. So you're going to click on the button. And it'll open up all of the effects that we have. Now, this is depending on plugins you have. You can always go and find and download more plugins for it. That's the other reason it's so good, is that you can just go and get all of these different plugins. But assuming that you've got just the default, you haven't found any plugins, you will have all of the stuff that's from the developer themselves. So all of this RIA stuff. So let's just add a basic reverb onto this. So if I click on that, now I have a reverb setting. And I'm just going to use a preset. I'm just going to say, hey, let's give it some crunch. Now when I play it, there's some reverb on that. You'll hear it more strongly in this brief. So now it's explosions happening like underground. Right? And so if I turn this off, that's what it sounds like normally. What it sounds like with the reverb. And we can keep adding more effects. I can just hit add here and add another one. Let's do a pitch, right? And the order matters, which way around we do these matters. If we do a pitch shift before the reverb, or the reverb before the pitch shift. But let's do a pitch shift and let's bring it down. Let's bring it up a semitone. Let's make it a little bit higher pitched before we apply the reverb. Not real noticeable. Let's do like 5 so you can hear it. Not coming through super noticeably. I'll turn off the reverb. So normal. It's not the most obvious thing in the world. Yeah, now you can hear it. That's a nice little sci-fi effect now, though. And that might be something you would want to make it more of a sci-fi. Still recognizably an explosion, but it's really artificial now. Right. But maybe you don't have samples to begin with. Maybe you're making the sounds, right? Now, maybe you record them somewhere else, like on your phone or something, and you bring the files in, but you can also just record them straight into Reaper if you have your microphone plugged in. And this is really good for vocal stuff. So first we're just going to check our settings. So if we just go to options, preferences, you'll see all of your settings, and just under audio device, you'll see what your input device is. And so this is plugged into my microphone right now. So it'll pick up everything my microphone can. You shouldn't have to worry too much about any of this stuff. The audio is one of those fields that you can do something very, very, very basic, very easily, but there is a lot of science to it if you really get into it, where this stuff starts to get really complicated. But let's just leave it like that. And I want to make a track I can record in. So I'm just going to double click. And I have a track. Right? And now all I've got to do is set what the input is. So if I click on this black bit here, that's the inputs. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go, I'm going to record in stereo. And if I right click on it, it'll ask me where I want to record from. So record, input should be fine. What it's on by default should be fine. So if I hit record here, that'll arm it. Right, and yeah, this is picking up my microphone. I can see that it's picking up my microphone because the meters are moving. If you don't want to hear yourself coming back, you can turn record monitoring off, and now you won't be able to hear it coming back out. And now I should be able to record this if I just hit record. And so what we're going to make is we're going to make some like orc grunts, right? So bear with me. This might be a little silly. Right? And that's honestly how most voice acting for anything like that kind of works. But now we have these three kind of clear, distinct kind of grunts, right? If we play them back, right? And they sound kind of silly, but let's make these sound a little bit mean. So let's get some effects on them. Let's open that up. And I want my pitch shift back. And I'm going to go down. Let's try a full tone to begin with. And again, you can just hit kind of loop here. While you're refining a sound, it's pretty good to just grab a selection and hit loop. Right? You can just drag some. Alright, so we're going to go down around 5 semitones. Right? You can stop it when you're not doing anything. Alright, and then let's put that reverb on as well. Let's just go the really light one though. Right? Pretty much. Turn off the second echo. No, the first echo. Alright. And you can always play around with this. There's a voice thing here. What do you do? Okay, we can't hear anything. Okay. Don't worry about it. You can just play around with effects. Add things, see what they do. Let's go with not a delay, an EQ, right? So when we do this, we can see where we can grab different parts of the waveform. You get the effect we want. Presets as well. And they're gonna just shift the sound a little bit. I like how much of a kick it's got. That'll do. That actually takes a little bit of the distortion out of it that we were getting from the reverb. Alright. And cool. There we go. We have our samples. Now, I am just going to zoom in a little bit so we can see a little bit clearer. Right? And what we want to do now is just save these out so we have 3 distinct sounds. Right? So that we can then bring them into the engine. Now to do that, I'm just going to turn off my magnets so that I'm not snapping anymore. And there's a bunch of different ways you can export. And if you were going to be sitting in here for ages playing with these settings and you wanted to maybe be able to change things and come back to it, then we would be looking at doing multiple tracks and maybe dealing with a feature called regions, if you want to look those up, where you can define kind of like samples across multiple tracks. But we're not going to do that today. We're just going to do the most basic. So let's grab just this here, right? And I'm going to go to File, Render. And I want to render the master mix, so that's everything, right? But I don't want to render the entire project. So it's everything this way, all the tracks, but not everything time-wise. I just want to get my selection, right? This is the regions I mentioned, but I just want my selection. So it'll say, oh, you want from 627 milliseconds to 1 second and 91 milliseconds, right? And then we're going to save this out. And so I want to save it just to the desktop. It's fine. And I want to name it or Grunt 1. And Wave is fine as a format. If you're working in Unity, Unity tends to like Old Vorbis, but Unreal likes Wave, so we can use Wave. And then and the other good thing about setting up regions is that you could tell it just to render out all of these for you, but we're just going to do them one at a time. So I'm going to render that out. There we go. Close. And let's find my sound file. There we go. And what we would do is we would just go through and do that for each of these. And then we've got our 3 samples.